So I'm Zaki. I have been doing stuff in crypto, blockchain, Web3, whatever you want to call it, for a decade. What are all the things that I do? I wear many hats. I co-founded a protocol called Sommelier. It's a DeFi Vault protocol. I'm relatively well known for having driven a lot of the initial go-to-market for the Cosmos ecosystem. I have this massive, with my co-founder Christy, advise, invest, design business that covers I don't know 50 protocols, and so I do lots of stuff. And the sort of story of sweet, thank you very much. So the story of sort of what it is that I've been doing, is a little bit just this kind of. So I think the last panel actually covered a little bit of the theme, which is, where there's this sense of sort of existential despair. I think. Awesome. I even have slides. All right. Cool. There's the sense of existential despair, I think, that sort of pervades the industry. And I'm going to try and unpack that a little bit across this talk, from the point of view of trying to say we have short-term games, we have long-term games. I've been building in this space for a decade. What do we have to show for it? Okay, so let's sort of start here. Interesting formatting, but all good. I come from this point of view that I think if you study sort of what crypto is actually used for across the world, and it's definitely more a thing that you see when you leave the West. So you go to the Middle East, you go to Southeast Asia, you see people actually using crypto because it solves some some actual problem that they have in their life, rather than the question of how do you monetize contributing to open source, which I think is probably what it solves for in the West. You basically see four products: yield, volatility, leverage, and payments. So yield is all forms of just generating cash flows on assets. So whether it's staking, whether or not it's DeFi, whether or not that's sort of your story. Volatility. There's this strong need among humans for volatile assets, whether they're Memecoins, whether or not they're the latest ICO, whether or not they're the latest airdrop. People want access to volatile assets. Number go up is the product. And then leverage. People want to be able to take directional financial bets with leverage, and they want to be able to either, whether or not through luck or information advantage, make outside returns. And then there's the classic payments. So payments are, is sort of dominated by Tron and Tether, but it serves an enormous amount of utility for large swaths of the population of the earth, that they can use blockchains as a way of moving money. Okay. So what's the current meta in crypto right now? So we basically have a bunch of memes. So we have the Memecoin meme, which is there's fair launch PvP. We have restaking, which is shared security, that economic security, but it's really hard, especially after a decade of working in proof of stake, to clearly articulate what economic security means. And proof of stake is largely built around decentralization as a meme. And it's still really hard to articulate exactly what properties we want from decentralization. Okay, so what isn't a meme? A service that offers tangible utility in exchange for value. And probably the rarest thing to find in the crypto ecosystem today. Stablecoins are definitely not a meme. Stablecoins are the clearest. Uh, I think you hear this a lot, which is like stablecoins are the clearest product market fit in crypto, but it's like you think about the ability to access the global reserve currency. I think again, if you live in Western Europe, if you live in North America, it's pretty easy to have a dollar denominated bank account. There's like lots of neobanks that will offer you such a service. But for much of the world, a dollar denominated bank account is not an easily accessed service. And so people will come in, stable coins have real proven utility for this. And then the ability to like settle a value across various exchanges, use DeFi, all of these things. We see like this enormous dominance of like short-term games, and basically short-term money games in the sort of evolution of crypto ecosystems. So like 2024, what are our like kind of top tier short-term games? Hyperliquid may or may not be familiar to the audience. Hyperliquid is essentially like an app chain that offers a DEX on top of it that supports both like perpetuals and other sort of trading instruments. And it's essentially, it is sort of this unique thing because the team behind it never raised any VC. The token distribution mechanism is basically to the users / traders, to people who are exchanging value on the system. So you have this like sort of unique ICO money game initial liquidity event. You have Memecoins as sort of ICO PvP. And you have restaking across like n number of restaking things as the sort of meme structure of the world. So I think a lot about this as, the model is, or sort of like, what is the model of the thing that we're building? Which is, our goal is you build casinos to like bring in users. You build these short-term money games to bring as like sort of your sort of core user onboarding flow. If you kind of don't do that, you don't benefit from any sort of positive reinforcement from cycles. You then have infrastructure. You have sort of the core sort of utility of what makes a blockchain useful. So like if you have these short-term money games, then you're able to build on-ramps, off-ramps, infrastructure providers, stable coins come to your ecosystem, bridging providers, all of these things come and are built around, all of this infrastructure gets built. And so like the real question, the existential structure of crypto in 2024 is like you build casinos, people build railroads, the infrastructure to like reach those casinos. And then ideally there's like factories that get built on top of that. So what infrastructure gets built? DeFi has stopped becoming like a product, and DeFi has just become the infrastructure of all of this. So in Hyperliquid, you have this sort of DEX trading based culture as like an L1 launch mechanism. And so like DeFi is sort of the core of the mechanism. Staking and restaking have what basically revived like sort of DeFi lending protocols. So like the new life that you see in things like Aave is largely driven by demand for leverage in the restaking process. And so Sommelier is this sort of dynamic vault protocol, and I've been contributing in the vault space for almost 4 years, and absolutely you've seen a revival and an enhancement of interest in that space because of restaking, and then you have like this sort of creation of new derivative assets that are derivatives of the majors, ETH and Bitcoin. And to a certain extent, Sol. All of these things are sort of driven as infrastructure that's created by the sort of this sort of set of money games. So building this way has downsides. The I think, and that's I think the struggle of I think everybody who has been in this space for a long time is, we've been building this way s- probably to a certain extent since 2017. But like a lot of the current mechanics have sort of matured in 2020 and 2021. So we're like 4 years in, and we're really starting to feel. I think a lot of us feel the downsides, and it's hard to feel just like universally as excited as we perhaps did in the past because we are aware of the downsides. Um, so, what are the downsides of building this way? The downsides of building this way is the sort of fractalization of what I guess my term for it is like the fractalization of incentives and value. So, you know, you have all of these short-term money games. They produce like an infinitely large set of tokens. I think we like saw this very clearly in sort of 2020, 21 in the Cosmos ecosystem era. And I think now you see ETH struggling with it, but like this destiny seems to be that like the cycle repeats eternally, which is so the story of Cosmos to a certain extent in this sort of fractalization of value is, there was an initial asset, Atom, and then everybody used the infrastructure and was highly incentivized to use the infrastructure to build lots of new tokens. So you have like 80, 100 blockchains spring up, each one of their own tokens. You have DeFi infrastructure, various DEX chains that allow people to trade and execute, to like trade all of these assets. And so you get this ecosystem, but you also have this like fractalization of value. So everyone in the ecosystem has like a different token that they're incentivized by. Everyone in the ecosystem is playing a slightly different game. All of the infrastructures are also providers are also playing slightly different games. And so now you have this like sort of this like, and this is to a certain extent, highly incentivized. No one would care about your ecosystem if this didn't happen. But now you have this other process, which is this like very painful process over the course of the next couple of years of consolidating everything that didn't take off and didn't become self-sustaining. And I think you're going to see, you basically see this play out across all of these things. So kind of like, where does this leave us today? And I think like where this leaves us today is this idea of is like we can all feel that like all of the different various money games that are being played today, all of the tokens that are going to be emitted by all of the AVSs that are building on all of the restaking protocols, all of the L2 tokens, all of these things are eventually going to have to get consolidated down. Eventually, there's going to have to be this process of like most of these money games will have only been short-term money games, and none of them will be the like sort of long-term games that have successfully been played with like Bitcoin and ETH. Or like relatively few of them will be that. And there will be this like sort of painful process of consolidating the ecosystem. And a lot of the people who are like sort of building in like various points in the cycle, will of like the cycle of short-term games, initial like trying to generate self-sustaining interest, sort of iterating across these short-term games, will also end in consolidations. But like many people will also have effectively retired along the way of these, and so we'll constantly have this sort of churn of human capital, churn of resources, and like re-implementation of the same software architectures over and over and again, which has been the sort of theme. So none of this was to like kind of be either positive or negative. I mean, I've been here for a decade, still building things. I just like thought this was like an interesting opportunity to not really shill a particular project, but just to kind of share the experiences of building in 2024, and see what people think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many people are willing to sort of be honest about kind of like where we are in the game, and like what the likely future is. But I thought this was going to be a fun time to do this.